Drug experimentation, the infamous 420 club. It's when, from the time the kid gets home, gets some of his friends on the phone, and has time to fire up the first joint, it's right around 4:20 in the afternoon. And so it's so popular that the kids all know, they've got their little code words and everything, and it leads them on a path that just can't possibly be good for them. What do we know? We know that behavior that is reinforced tends to be repeated. If it's a good behavior and you're reinforcing, that was nice, you picked up something for somebody, you helped somebody out, you explained homework to your friend or something, way to go, that behavior will tend to be reinforced. If it's, Johnny, I want you to sit down. Put that down right now. Johnny, I am getting sick and tired of you. That is a reinforcer. That is attention. And that is going to be a behavior that's going to be reinforced. Why? Because it works. It works. I got your attention. I got a grown-up's attention. What we know is kids want your attention. They need your attention. And they can either be wonderful and ingratiating, my favorite kind of kid, or they could be the little pain in the butt that just does anything they can to see if they can just get you all riled up. So what we know is that kids want to feel good. They want to feel that they belong here on the planet, that they have a place, that they matter. They want to know where their specialness is. So these are some basic core truths. And it seems no-brainer. It's like, well, she's not telling us anything we don't know. And I guess that's the beauty of the thing, because I'm not telling you something you don't know. I'm just keeping in mind, reminding us of something we need to remember if we're going to come up with a solution, a community solution to a problem we have that's getting way out of hand. I will tell you what doesn't work. We tried a lot of stuff. What doesn't work is trying to solve a problem without knowing what the problem is or what makes the problem stay. You know, why doesn't it just go away? We had this wonderful, wonderful plan. It was to do outreach into one of our poor communities, and they set up little few tables, some flyers, and then send out some notices with all the kids, and come on in, we'll help you get food stamps. If you're having trouble with your bills or you need help with parenting or something like that, we'll be here all day. And then we'll have a special session from 7 to 9 at night. Guess who showed up? No one. No one. Why? Because people have rhythms, and they have, procedures. They have habits. And we're asking people, large numbers of people, to break their whole day to do something that they're not so sure that there's anything in it for them. You need to work with the natural rhythms of someone's life. Getting people to come. A lot of times you have to sit there and like, oh, I'd love to come, but I'm busy right now, maybe next Tuesday or something like that. So we need to work and accept as real. People have natural rhythms and a life flow that we need to find a way to plug into. So we're moving with it. Another thing we found was that a lot of people are suspicious. If it has to do with government, if it has to do with the school, especially parents who may not be doing right, who may be drinking, who may be drugging, who may not know how to really handle their kids. They know they're getting too rough. They know they're ticked off. They have unhealthy relationships all around them, and they just rather y'all kept out of their life. I don't want you people, don't offer me anything. I don't want anything from you. Just stay away from us. We'll handle our lives in our own way. A lot of times, people really believe that nothing is going to be very helpful. And there's a real discouragement. There's no fire. There's no excitement. There's no exhilaration getting people, pulled together for community. It can't be a drudgeful thing. It's got to be uplifting, positive, like a magnet, attracting the people who really need to be there, who really could use some support in some way. And the other thing is, a reality is most of the kids who are at risk for all of the before mentioned, that they either are latchkey kids, that they have no supervision, that they're in a poor neighborhood. A reality is a lot of their parents are working very, very long hours just trying to get by. Actually, I think I'm going to move to Holland. A friend of mine from there tells me that by government decree, you're only allowed to work 30 to 35 hours a week. But I think we should institute something like that. You know, commissioners, if you could just work on that. Okay, so we know that these things are problems. We know that when we tried intervention during the school day, it was very disruptive to the teachers, it was disruptive to the kid. You had the kids who were trying to do right saying, how come little Johnny gets to go? He doesn't sit down and he throws chalk. How come he gets special privileges? And then you get the other side is, okay, yeah, little Johnny, Dorco, time for you to go to your Dorco time, you know. There's stigmas involved when we single certain kids out, even though we all elementary school teachers can tell you in a heartbeat which kids these are. And the other thing that we use to try to keep kids in line, I love this one. We will suspend you. You can't come to school. You didn't want to be here in the first place, so that's why you're acting up. So you could go home, sleep in late, eat snacks all day, and maybe sneak out a little earlier with your friends to go find something to do because you're bored. Suspending, that doesn't work. Not a good thing. So, okay, what do I want from you guys? Where am I going with all this? Well, again, Lynn and I talked at length, and it's funny, over time and in different places and on different pathways, we came to the same conclusion. She had done programs before, knows that they work, has seen it happen. And I, stumbling through my life, tripping over things, I feel like one of those little bumper cars that backs up and turns a different way, as we learn, as we discover through experience, things, what our parameters are, what our factors are, and what can we do with this? As I see it, what we need is a program. Now, let me stop here. After school programs have been with us always, and I do understand that. And do they do a good job? Yeah, they do. However, there are things we can do, adding that little extra oomph that would be a difference that makes a difference. And it's so incredibly doable. We need to have a program that is available to all parents. The cost would not be a problem, would not be a deal breaker. Because a lot of the kids who need these programs are the kids who have the smallest amount of resources. Not that kids of the healthy middle class and upper class don't need help, because they do too. But the factors when the kids are very small, poverty, supervision, these are huge, so we can't ignore them. It has to be available to all parents. It's got to be staffed by hands-on people. Kids, there's a tendency, and after having 21 kids in my house every day, all summer, one summer, I realized, you can get overwhelmed and you're just doing traffic control. You're just like overseeing to make sure people don't kill each other. You're just, trying to keep up behind it. What we need is a proactive program with people who are trained in peer resolution, team building, cognitive behavioral approach to the world. Now, just to super simplify, cognitive behavioral is where you realize that the things you think creates what you feel, which ends up in what you do. To oversimplify, okay, you're sitting in traffic and it's backed up for miles and you know you're going to be late. If you're sitting there going, can't be late, why does this always happen to me? I'm fed up with this. I'm going to call my commissioner when I get home. I want better roads, and I want them now. You're going to sit there and get all angry. When you get angry, you feel tense, you feel anxious, you go home and you kick the dog or yell at your kids, or you just have a bad experience. Same person, same traffic, sitting there going, okay, gosh, I wish we were moving faster. But you know what could be worse? I could be the person, 40 cars up who's being airlifted, and who knows if they're going to live. This is an inconvenience. I don't like it, but I accept it. I'll be fine. That same person, same traffic, has got self-talk that says good things to themselves. They will be relaxed. They will be at peace. And they will have better behaviors afterwards. They will act on the messages they tell themselves. Simple concept. Having a clinical person or somebody who understands this concept to keep the staff excited. Staff burnout with kids, oh no, it's high. It's very, very hard. I've worked in a shelter before, and kids will burn you out. It's hard. So staff would have to be trained. They'd have to be kept excited, kept on top of these things, and hands-on. The other thing in my perfect utopian world would be teams of a male and a female. We need that male role model. We need the men out here to be able to help the kids see how's a guy supposed to handle things. Maybe it's not backhanding mom, not to put down all guys here, but a lot of these kids don't see the very positive, they don't see the very good kind of stuff. The cost would not have to be really that high. You need to have somebody who understands how to get the concept to the counselors. You would need counselors who are open-minded. Anybody can learn the concept of healthy thinking. Little kids can learn it. They have programs for them. Anybody can do it if you have an open mind. If you're willing to get excited about it. If you're willing to get out there and say, okay, how do I impart this to this little kid who still believes in magic? How can I keep good feelings, to keep these good things they know how to do naturally going? We have a tendency to just pay low wages and not expect very much from our caregivers. And again, anybody who gives any care at all, God bless you, it's a good thing. But getting hands-on, having a curriculum, having a program, having an idea of what is it we hope to accomplish, which would be keeping the kids safe, building them up so that they are that percentage of kids who by the age of 10 feels good. I belong. It's my world. And this is it. This is all I have to say. I hope I've left you with something to think about. There are, ways to kick it around and the ways to flesh it out a little bit more. But it could work. And I've seen it on a small level. And if we did this on a community level, especially in our neighborhoods where we know our breeding grounds for kids to really start turning into criminals, we could stop it. Any questions?
I was going to say, we are going to have a few questions about Candace, and then we have asked Ray Judah if he would like to come up and make a few comments about some of the problems that we may be facing in terms of doing the kinds of things that Candace is suggesting, or finding a way to do this. And Ray, I mean, where are you?
Well, you go now. Do you want to leave it open for some questions of Candace?
Oh, well, let's leave it open for 5 minutes or so for Candace, and then you can jump.
Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Identify yourself.
Pat Washington. One of the problems I've seen working with at-risk kids has to do with you can take them out of their home environment, community, or whatever, and you put them in these agencies, institutions, and programs, or whatever. But they still, we forget that these children need to be what I call bicultural. They need the skills to do what they need to do to stay out of trouble, but they also need skills in order to survive in their communities. And sometimes we take these children and we teach them what they need to do to stay out of trouble, and then they get back into the communities and they're at a loss and they're floundering. That does not mean we teach them how to be good criminals, but we do have to teach them let them keep the skills that they need in order to survive in their communities without becoming career criminals as well.
Right, and one thing that I forgot to add, I'm losing my mind these days. Part of the program would be that when the parents came in, offer to them also the same skill base that we offer to the staff. But yeah, not everybody in the community is going to be rational. Hopefully we can start the little microcosm as the family learns how to think rationally so that they can work together and solve their problems, and that the kids would have some skills. But it's hard. We're going to have to infiltrate, like one at a time practically. Yes?
You were talking about that this is doable. This is that the solutions are relatively clear-cut and simple. And I'm wondering what seems to be, when you were talking about Medicaid, this is how the system is. It's a real culture shift, I think, that has to happen, and I don't know how you do that. And that is to focus on prevention and early intervention. And so far, the United States has more people incarcerated, I believe, than any other developed country. The focus is all at the other end. So how do we go about doing that? I mean, the first things, right now, because of budget cuts, some of the first programs to go are the prevention programs, the after-school programs that are working. How, that seems to be the biggest barrier right there.
Well, it seems to me that it would be short-sighted for the people who have control of the money to sit there and not listen to us when we say, you're going to pay for it somewhere along the line. Pay for it where it's small, or it'll pay for it when it's bigger. When they stop doing the prevention, which was right around the year when you got those first numbers from the Jack Center, when they took the money out of prevention, within 4 years, it quadrupled. Right there seems to say, whoa, hold up, let's step back and look at this again. If we're going to spend our money, should we not look at what worked, what used to work, and we've even been able to prove that it was working. Yes?
Maybe I was just not understanding, but the at-risk youth are no longer in certain pockets. I do believe that right now the at-risk kids in the county are spread throughout the county. It's not just a certain pocket. And when you're talking about disadvantage, you're really talking about juvenile or kids, youth, that socioeconomic background it just crosses from the poverty to the very high. It's no longer in the work I do, I see that it's no longer really just because I don't have, or it's not just because I have to help. What it is a lot of times now, it's not that. It's more like there are kids and out there for whatever reason they just want. It's greed and it's boredom, and in 38% of parents, and this is a study, and this was just, not really a study, but it was just a rough survey that we did in the court system. And these are kids, and I'll tell you, I have third graders, from third grade all the way to seniors that I work with in high school, from third grade all the way to seniors in our program. Not all of them are first-time offenders, but about 98% are. 38% of parents do not show where their kid in court. That means that kid stands before a judge on his own, and that's just that's just roughly speaking about 38%. And this was just over a few weeks of doing a rough survey. So these programs that are available out there, exactly what you're looking for, do exist already. But I think the real problem is parent and parent involvement. And if you're talking about risk, kids at risk, are we just pulling those out that haven't entered the system, or why don't we also include those that have? Because that's where you need to make a stop. And what happens a lot of times is those programs that are out there for at-risk kids immediately weed out any kid that has had a misdemeanor offense or a first-time offense. And that's really where I think everything gets festered. Those kids will say to the younger ones, oh yeah, but it's not a big deal. That's what you have to. So I'm not real sure, like maybe I was misunderstanding you. But
You make several excellent points there. One thing that jumped out at me was when you said a lot of these kids start into it from greed and boredom. But I submit to you, it's greed and boredom plus the opportunity. Now greed, I don't see that we are going to stop that. Always boredom. But we can limit opportunity, and that would be supervision, almost like a pseudo-parent. I also agree with you that, just targeting at-risk kids, being a kid makes you at risk. Every child have the opportunity, unless something else is going on, unless their parents have something else, a safe place that's rationally and in a healthy way administered and run. With the opportunity when the parents come in, if you want some information, you want to know what we're teaching your kid, do you need help? We're here. You can pick your child up rather than have the child going home by themselves. The second part would be the kids who are already in the system. We know that they have problems. Back when I was moonlighting, when I was at Ruth Cooper, I was doing DJJ assessments. They wanted to know what to do with the kids, and I would go in and see, maybe 7 kids a week, do an assessment on them, a psychosocial assessment. The overwhelming majority of them just said, well, whatever, I don't want to go back home. I don't want to go home to my family. I'm not cared for there. I'd rather go live with my aunt. I'd rather go live with somebody else. And the sense of desolation, the sense of not belonging to anything, and you're right, it's an absolute point of intervention. It's almost like tier 2. The first thing is try to prevent it from happening. The second thing would be damage control, because the third thing will be 1% of our population is behind bars. Yes?
You had implied that one of the problems was a lack of a male in the home. How do you look at that with the fact that we have increased numbers of females that are entering these systems? And most of the single parents are indeed females.
After I was finished saying what I said, I was doing a little running commentary in the back of my head. A strong male figure doesn't just impact males. A strong male figure teaches little girls how to act, how gender roles are different and all that. Sadly, I think, and there's been a lot of writing on it, a lot of talk about it. But basically, I think we've, in a lot of cases, edged men out of their families. Most of the felons that we speak to, and Ray and I have seen like 60 or 80 of them in this past year. Most of them did not have anybody they could identify as a male role model. Now, we only had a handful of women there. They basically said the same thing. So it affects little girls and little boys. But I think we're sort of marginalizing our families. Yes?
Candace, I think to a great degree you're preaching to the choir here.
Probably.
I mean, we want to see change. We want to see positive change. And most of what you've said is right on mark, just as some of the other comments. The problem is, fundamentally, is we need a greater sense of responsibility. Above all else, not another program to throw money at and hope that it makes a difference. We need a greater sense of responsibility, personal responsibility, familial responsibility, community responsibility. Even though I'm a Republican, it does take a village to raise a child. The bottom line is, the teachers that are here and the teachers that are out there are heroes, but they don't get paid enough. We don't attract enough of them because we don't value what they do for our children enough. The law enforcement officers that are there aren't given enough credit for what they try to do. The therapists that are out there to help those at the very extreme points, they don't get enough recognition. There's not enough of them. The county commissioners, the city councilmen, all our governmental agencies don't place a greater value in influencing the home because it all starts at the home. I meet with and I represent a lot of juveniles. And they get a tongue lashing from me. They're not going to get any sympathy from me. Now in court I've got to represent their best interests. But 9 out of 10 of the juveniles that I represent come from a broken home. And the other 1% has a complete home, a mother and a father, but guess what? Like you said, they don't devote the time, the interest, and the investment that they need to do to teach responsibility. It must start with responsibility, and that's where we have to invest time. Now, how we do that is going to be a challenge. But it starts at...
How is the hard part.
But it starts at the
that's
school,
why.
because here's the thing. One thing I have observed from a very informal standpoint. You keep kids active, and they're going to be great. Somebody's going to be giving them attention. You keep kids active, and they're going to be a greater likelihood they're going to be a success, or they're not going to get into trouble. And in order to do that, you have to make things free. Free. Don't charge them for this activity or that activity, and it's primarily based around the school and school-related, whether that's sports or other interests. But you need to make it free. And you also have to think about and factor in transportation, because the other thing is, sometimes when you make it convenient, you might be making it convenient there, but it's hard for the individual to get transportation. But here's what I'm saying. I really think that fundamentally, at its very core, we will not change a thing until we teach and we promote responsibility.
At this moment, I would just like to comment. The League of Women Voters has been trying for almost 4 years to involve the community. Nothing is going to happen or change unless the community decides they want to save these children. There is nothing going to happen. We are not going to be able to individualize programs that are affecting these broken homes, these children who maybe have 2 or 3 fathers, these parents that are working 2 jobs, very exhausted, and cannot cope. The community has to come out and say, we embrace these children. We embrace these children at 3 years old and 4 years old that are pre-kindergartners. And we are going to care for them until they get to that point of feeling good at 10. So how much are we willing to pay? How much are we willing to put out there personally? I have asked the question because the League has a position on getting social workers to elementary schools. And I've asked the question, how many members of our League have written a letter to the newspaper? How many of our League members have made a telephone call to their friends? How many League members have been willing to go to officials to talk about the problem? I think we have to understand that children are the last thing on our list until they slit some kid's throat at 14 and then they become a felon. So I think the problem is with us. I mean, that's what I think. Judy?
Yeah, I think choir practice is a good thing. I think it's good that we talk about this issue to people who probably all care about it. But I think, as the league member, what I think our role is to educate taxpayers, because this costs money. And I have seen in the justice system, it's gone from county funding things to the state funding things, and therefore nobody funds it. So it's a